Hey, this is Jamey with Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about a topic that I've been thinking about for a while, and I finally figured out how I want to do it. So basically the idea is I'm going to look at 10 classic games and my favorite elements of those classic games and pair them with modern, not equivalents, but modern games that I love that have that favorite mechanism in it. You'll understand what I'm saying in a second when I start doing this, but that's the idea. Name classic game. Awesome thing about it, even though I don't think I really play, there's one of these classic games that I still play, but that's it. Because I'd rather play the modern equivalents that do this one thing even better than the classic game, in my opinion. And these are classic, I would say mostly American games, and they don't all originate in America, but I grew up in America, and so these are the games that I played as a kid. I'm sure if you grew up in a different country, you might have different classic games there. So anyway, in no particular order, I'll start with, actually, and before I start, I do want to mention there's a great link below from meeplelikeus.co.uk. I'll post it below. They really inspired this list, and I used many of the games that they used, not all of them, and I will mention the games that they picked, the modern equivalents that they picked for any of the games that were on their list, some overlap there. So let's start with Monopoly, classic game Monopoly, right? My favorite thing about Monopoly is that good things, often the best things, happen to you when it's not your turn. So when people land on the properties that you own, they pay you money. You're not doing anything on your turn, but they land there and you get good stuff from it. I think that's great. I think it's great when games give you good stuff, when good stuff happens when it's not even your turn. And the modern equivalent of that I chose, and there are lots of the games I could have chosen from. Hopefully you'll name some even better examples in the comments than what I thought of, because oftentimes I was kind of thinking more about a game in this style. But the game that I thought about was Space Base. In Space Base, you control a bunch of different spaceships, and you can upgrade them to other spaceships and replace them with other spaceships. And oftentimes when other players roll, you get a benefit based on the passive benefits that you have on your space base. So I think Space Base does that element really well. Great things happen when it's not even your turn in Space Base. The next one is Clue, classic deduction game. And in this one, I think the deduction is the key. In Clue, when you're rolling the dice and moving around, all that seemed a little extraneous. But the deduction element, I thought was a lot of fun, the mystery of it. And actually, back up, before I go to Clue, the Meeple Like Us pick for Monopoly, the modern equivalent, was Chinatown, which I agree is a great game, but it just didn't match exactly with my list here. Anyway, Clue, Deduction. Deduction's the best part. Meeple Like Us picked Mysterium, which I think is a great pick. Definitely has deduction elements and strong deduction elements. I chose Sherlock 13, which is basically a very distilled down version of Clue. Without all the extra movement and whatnot, you are just doing something very basic. It's very basic deduction based on information that players are providing to each other. It's basically Clue without a board, and it plays in about 10 to 13 minutes. Maybe that's why they chose the number 13. But Sherlock 13, great filler game if you like deduction games. Next up is Sorry. Sorry is a game that I don't recall having many choices in it. I think maybe you have two pawns, and whenever you move one, you get to choose which pawn you move and where you move it. Little bit of choice there, but mostly it's just roll and move around the board. And yet we played it and had fun with it as a kid, and I think that's because of, in addition to the luck in it, that it's a race game. You're racing to get to the end of Sorry. And so this is the first game that I actually have on the list. Obviously, my favorite racing game is Downforce. I love the racing elements in Downforce. It is a fantastic racing game, and I would, if you like that racing element of Sorry, I would highly recommend checking out Downforce. And it isn't even that much more complicated than Sorry. It's a very, very streamlined game. Next up is Chess. Probably the oldest game on this list, I think. Very old, two-player head-to-head game with perfect information at the start and perfectly symmetrical. Instead of all these asymmetrical modern games that we have, it's perfectly symmetrical. Meeple Like Us picked Onitama, which I think is a great abstract two-player game. For me, I wanted to pick a game that offers each players the exact same start, because I think that's the fun of chess, that you start on the complete on a complete level playing field as the other player, except for your playing experience. But the mechanisms themselves start on equal footing. And so I picked Blokus. I love Blokus. Also, I picked it because it is an abstract game as well. But I love Blokus. Even though it's not a two-player game, I play Blokus with 4 players. It is an abstract game, and you start with nothing, really. I mean, everyone starts with the same pieces off the board, but on the board you start with nothing. And you have the exact same start as all the other players, and you have perfect information as well throughout the game with all the other players. That's why it feels really good when you win Blokus, when I win Blokus, because I know it was almost entirely skill. There was no luck or randomness that goes into it. So Blokus is my modern pick for chess, even though chess I think still holds up on its own. I would play chess again. Next up is Risk. I played a lot of Risk when I was younger. And I was trying to figure out what I loved about Risk, because there's a lot. I had a lot of fun with Risk. I really enjoyed it. I think I most enjoyed before the games of Risk, before playing, like thinking about what strategy I wanted to pursue. Oftentimes in the initial placement on the board. But I think one of my favorite things about Risk really is the area control aspect. It's very satisfying to hold a continent for an entire turn. So when it gets back to your turn, you get the income from that continent. So I picked my favorite area control game, or what I think my favorite area control game is, and that is Belfort. There are many other area control games out there, but Belfort I just really, really loved. I think it's a great both area majority game and area control game. That is Belfort. I used to have it, don't have it with me now. Scrabble, classic game, still played today. I think the obvious pick here would be paperback. But my favorite thing about Scrabble is not the words, because I don't really enjoy word games like that. My favorite thing about Scrabble is when you manage to get a piece on one of those 2 times or 3 times scoring places on the board. I think that feels really, really satisfying when you do that. And getting those multipliers, working up to those multipliers. And the game I picked for this was Ganz, Schön, Clevern, one of these new roll and write games that are the new hotness right now. And Ganz, Schön, Clevern does that exact thing. It has this multiplicative effect in the game, both in the combos you're building, and I think there's even a certain track where you're gaining multipliers as you advance on that track. So I really like that multiplier, like reaching just a little bit further to get to that multiplier. I think is very satisfying in Scrabble and in Ganz, Schön, Clevern, my modern pick. Next up is Apples to Apples, maybe the newest game on this list, but I would consider it a classic game at this point. And I think the fun of Apples to Apples is trying to get in your friends' heads and appeal to them, appeal to what they like, what information they have. And this is a tough pick. I feel like there's something else that I should have picked for this. But in that element of kind of putting yourself in your friend's shoes, I picked Just One. Because in Just One, you're not just picking a clever clue, but you're also picking a clever clue for the specific guesser whose turn it is, who's trying to guess the one word that you all know and that person doesn't know. So I think Just One does that the element of apples to apples that I like really, really well. My next pick is Poker. Poker is the one modern or classic game that I still do play on occasion. I love Poker, and it's the bluffing that I really, really enjoy in Poker. I love the tension provided by bluffing. Like in poker, it doesn't even matter all the time if you have a good hand or not. Yeah, it's fun to get those 2 aces in your Texas Hold'em hand, but and that is a lot of fun. But the bluffing that you have 2 aces when you don't, and somehow winning the pot is very, very satisfying. You feel very clever when you do that. And so Meeple Like Us picked Skull, which I think is a great pick for this. I picked Sheriff of Nottingham. Because I remember I hosted a poker night a couple years ago, and we finished early, and I broke out Sheriff, and we ended up playing Sheriff for the rest of the night. It really, really fit those people who loved poker. It really fit them well because there's so much bluffing, very satisfying bluffing that goes on in Sheriff of Nottingham, and even some negotiation too, which can sometimes happen in poker. So Sheriff of Nottingham is my modern pick for poker. Next up is Yahtzee. And Yahtzee, the thing I love is this re-rolling and locking dice, which I have a feeling I'm missing a great game. I'm forgetting about a great game that has that mechanism. But it extends to this push your luck element. You're rolling, you're re-rolling, you're trying to get the best dice, but within limits, and you're pushing your luck to do that. And one of my favorite push your luck games that also has dice rolling, so I wanted to pick this one, is Deep Sea Adventure. Deep Sea Adventure is a wonderful little game from Oink Games where you are pushing your luck and deciding how deep you want to dive to get some treasure before racing back up before oxygen runs out. So Deep Sea Adventure is my modern pick for Yahtzee. And finally, the game that I probably played, this is the toughest to put on this list because I didn't play the Game of Life or Life. I didn't play it all that much as a kid, but we did have it. We did play it a few times. I do consider it a classic game. People like us had it on their list, and they picked Fog of Love. I think Fog of Love is an excellent pick for a modern equivalent of Game of Life. I picked Pursuit of Happiness. Pursuit of Happiness is a competitive game where you are essentially, and I should say, my favorite thing about Game of Life is that you are narratively kind of telling a life story in a way that when you finish the game, you can look back and remember these funny things that you did in your life. Fog of Love, I think, does that very well, but Pursuit of Happiness, I think, also does that really well, where you are telling your life story in Pursuit of Happiness in a way that mixes, in a way that the mechanisms really accentuate in a clever way. Pursuit of Happiness is my modern pick for the classic Game of Life. This list actually went pretty fast. I didn't know how long this would take, but 10 classic games and the things I love about them the most, and they're the modern games that accentuate those elements the best. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. If I've forgotten a classic game, like a truly classic game, I've left some of my favorite classic games, like Labyrinth and Scotland Yard. I left them off the list because I still love them and play them today, and I think they did it so well back then, they still do it well now. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these games that I mentioned, especially if you want to play off the mechanisms that I mentioned. What you maybe either play off my favorite or name your favorite mechanism in these classic games and the modern game that uses that mechanism even better. I'd love to hear about that in the comments as well. All right, thanks.